secret. Providing truth for our people, we able to reach them. So anytime you get accused for a crime and Lord knows you ain't do it, we here to get you through it. Exemplifying prudence and glorifying God, making sure you're compensated for other people's doings. Our vision is to be one of the best. We're small enough to focus on your matter throughout the neighborhoods of Dallas. Working constantly and making sure your rights are protected. A firm team of lawyers, aggressive, effective. A team that has your back in the courtroom. Two well-spoken black lawyers in the courtroom. Investing time and resources when it's evident that you were treated wrong. Now you walking out of Dallas courtroom with a settlement. Corbin and Corbett, the father-daughter legal tag team that has your back in the courtroom. Our purpose is simple. To obtain the favorable outcome for each client and glorify Christ in all we do.
Hello everybody. Attorney Augustus Corbett here. I'm excited to come into your homes again today, but not on this occasion. And what I want to talk with you about, as the title suggests, is I want to talk to you about what the Breonna Taylor murder case say. What does it say? What does it tell us? What does it communicate to us? You see, we African Americans in these kind of situations, we tend to play checkers instead of playing chess. We got to think 5 or 6 moves ahead of the folks who have been oppressing our people for 400 years. We're still playing checkers. We got to start playing chess. So let's look at what the Breonna Taylor murder case says to us. Now, why is it that I have any credibility, any authority to speak on this issue? Here's why. Because I'm going on 14 years of being a criminal defense attorney. I have spoken in front of many grand juries. I have dealt with many grand juries over that 14-year period. I have presented many grand jury packets to the grand jury. I've represented people on murder charges, capital murder charges, and everything in between. I've represented many people. I don't know, maybe in the thousands by now, certainly in the hundreds. So I know a little bit about this space. Not only that, I'm also a 58-year-old black man, African-American man, born and raised in the United States of America. I have seen racism up close and personal. I grew up my teenage years in North Carolina. That's where I'm from. I was born in New York. I was raised in North Carolina up through my teenage years. So I know when we're dealing with, I know when I see white supremacy and racism. And that's what's immediately in our face. And so I want to give you some specifics about what we're seeing when we look at the Breonna Taylor murder case. I'm going to give you a legal analysis. I'm going to tell you why these officers were not indicted, at least not yet. They still can be, by the way. Just because one grand jury didn't indict any of them, other grand juries can be impaneled and someone else can present the case other than Daniel Cameron, and it is possible, although very improbable, that they will ever be held accountable for the murder of Breonna Taylor. As a lawyer, let me take back the word murder. I don't want to use it as a professional, as a criminal defense lawyer. Everyone is presumed innocent until proven guilty, even these police officers. They have not been found guilty of anything, so I withdraw the word murder. The accused, the killing of Breonna Taylor, okay? But let's talk about it. So one of the officers, let me put them up. One of the officers has been indicted. One of the officers, the officer in the middle, Officer Brett Hankinson. Brett Hankinson. This officer has been indicted on 3 counts of wanton endangerment. Now, I don't practice in Kentucky. I'm licensed here in Texas, so I don't know the specifics or the nuances of Kentucky law. But wanton endangerment sounds to me like they felt like something he did was reckless. It disregarded life. And from what I understand, it was the fact that when he started shooting, his bullets missed Taylor and went in some other apartments and endangered those folks, which is very weird right by itself, right? So basically he got indicted because he missed her. He got indicted because her bullets did not go inside her body, apparently. So, I mean, that's just weird. And he got indicted because he endangered the life of people in other apartments, but not for shooting inside Breonna Taylor's apartment, okay? And Daniel Cameron made some comments that I'll address in just a moment. So he, and only he, was indicted on wanton endangerment, 3 counts of wanton endangerment. And if I recall, I think each one of these charges carries up to 5 years, from 1 to 5 years, I think. Okay, don't quote me on that. All right. And so that's what he was indicted on. Now, let me just tell you this. A grand jury is a panel of people who look at the evidence in a case and they decide if there is enough evidence to indict the person. So even after a person in many jurisdictions, even after the police has gotten an arrest warrant and a person has been charged by the police and a magistrate, they still, in many jurisdictions at least, have to, the district attorney's office still has to present the case to a grand jury, okay, to a grand jury. So even after they've been arrested and charged on the strength of a magistrate's signing an arrest warrant, they still, in many jurisdictions, that case still has to go in front of a panel of people. In Texas, that's 12 people. And sorry about that. And they have to then return a true bill of indictment. Okay? Let me cut this phone off so it doesn't disturb me going forward. All right. So that's what the role of the grand jury is, and it's really it's put there to be sort of a neutral body, to make sure to hold the prosecutor's office at bay, to let these 12 regular citizens look at the evidence in the case and see if the person's charge should be sort of upgraded to an indictment or whether or not it should be dismissed by the grand jury, or a person can be indicted on a lesser offense. When we're representing criminal defendants, in many cases, and not every situation, but in some cases, we will present what we call a grand jury packet to the grand jury, trying to convince them not to issue a true bill of indictment. It is really difficult, and sometimes it's not good to do because you're kind of showing the prosecutor your hand and the theory of your case, but in other situations, it is good to do, and we have done so and have gotten cases dismissed, by the way. So that's what a grand jury does. They're there to kind of say, hold it, slow up a little bit here, prosecutors, and let us look at this. Let us 12 people from the community look at the evidence and see if there's enough evidence to bring an indictment, okay? We're going to talk about in just a second what the standard is, how much evidence the grand jury needs in order to bring the indictment, okay? And I'm going to show you why these people were not indicted, not one of them, Okay? All right, so what does the Breonna Taylor murder case say to us? It says at least two things that I want to focus on. Number one, it says that black lives don't matter. It says that. I just thought about it. I have a button on here, and I want to read you what it says. Across cultures, darker people suffer most. That's what my button says. I wear it on my suit jackets, on my coats. Across cultures, darker people suffer most. And then it says why, and that's a whole nother video. But one of the reasons why is because black lives don't matter. We see that. That's not even something worth the time to debate. We see it in the way that black lives are treated. Black lives have never mattered in this country, although you could say that they mattered more in slavery, when we were chattel property. Under the law, we were considered property, and the folks who enslaved us obviously didn't want to lose the value of their property, so we to them probably meant more then than we do now, if you understand what I'm trying to say. But black lives don't matter. You kill black people and American society pretty much feels like you haven't cost society much of anything. Okay? So you kill an innocent young woman in the prime of her life, or in her early mid-20s, who's doing well, Miss Taylor, and in our society, her life doesn't matter. She's gone. No one has been held accountable and will probably never be held accountable for going to her house at pitch dark, not identifying yourself, and basically shooting over 30 rounds in her house while you were looking for someone else that the police department already had in custody, reportedly. So why isn't someone being held accountable? Well, someone may say, yeah, but her family did get $12 million for her death. Yeah, well, that's the only way to compensate families when their loved one has been killed wrongfully. But that's still not justice. The people who took her life, based on the facts that we know, those people should be at least held accountable by a jury. I mean, whatever the jury decides after looking at all the evidence, that's one thing. People can disagree on that. But the case should have never stopped at the grand jury. And I'll tell you why in just a few moments. But the first thing that the Breonna Taylor murder case tells us, the first thing it says is that black lives don't matter. Her death tells us that. George Floyd's death tells us that. Ahmaud Arbery's death tells us that. Trayvon Martin's death tells us that. We could go on and on. Tamir Rice, a 12-year-old child, his life and death tells us that. Michael Brown, Eric Garner, they all, the way, the way they died tells us that black lives don't matter. And that's just what? That's just in the last 10 years or so. Okay? We've been in this country fearing for our lives for over 400 years. Millions and millions of people, black people, have lost their lives because of white supremacy and racism. Okay? So it's clear, it's not debatable. Black lives don't matter in America. And unfortunately, they don't even matter a whole lot to some other black people, because we have been taught that our lives don't matter. And so we don't mind taking the life of another black person. So this racist, white supremacist culture has taught all of us that black lives don't matter. It's taught whites that, it's taught other races that, and it's even taught us, black folks, that black lives don't matter. And the criminal justice system shows us again and again and again that black lives don't matter. I represent many people in the criminal justice system. I have young black men today that we're representing, my daughter and I, Chloe Corbett, and it's obvious that their lives don't matter. I mean, we fight every day in the criminal justice system to make their lives matter. But the message that's being sent to us all the time, that their lives don't matter. And like the subtopic says, the justice system is working just the way it was designed. You know, a lot of police officers behave as if they're still slave catchers, which is where policing in America started. It started as slave patrols, as slave catchers, and a lot of them behave that way. I saw a video a couple of days ago of a young black man being harassed by police officers, and they had high-powered rifles, and one of them was questioning this young man. He looks like I couldn't see him, but the sound of his voice, he sounded like a young man. They were questioning him because he had on a fancy, expensive watch, but it had on like sandals. So they were like, how can you afford this watch when you have on sandals? And they wanted him to give them his name, his address, to explain why his watch and his shoes didn't match. And I mean, just racial profiling, basically. Okay? That is the way the system was designed. And it's working just the way it's designed. Someone told me recently that, the system is broken. No, it isn't. The system is working just like the folks designed it to work. Michelle Alexander wrote a great book a few years ago entitled The New Jim Crow, where she talked about how the criminal justice system is the new way that America keeps, especially black men, in bondage, oppressed. It's the new Jim Crow. So the criminal justice system is working just the way it's supposed to work, just the way they designed it to work. In fact, just today, Ron DeSantis, the governor of Florida, has introduced, and from what he's reportedly trying to get a number of laws passed that basically makes protesting felonies. That makes protesting felonies. So these young people who are out here protesting could be charged with felony offenses if he can get this through the Florida legislature. And he shouldn't have a hard time doing that because it's a red state and most of the legislatures are Republicans and most of them are white. or Latino because of the Cuban influx. And so they should have no problem getting these laws passed. And so the spirited, idealistic young person who is following the example of John Lewis and Martin Luther King and the rest, who goes out and protests peacefully, not rioting or any of that, but peacefully protests, they can be charged with felonies. And I know there's language in DeSantis, the laws that he want to get passed that talks about if they destroy property or if they, are rioting or something of that nature. So folks would say, well, they got to be doing more than just protesting. Look, I'm in this business and I know that they can easily be charged with a felony offense if he gets this passed. One of the reasons is because police officers can lie. They do lie. I've caught them in lies. They've even lied on me. Okay? And others can lie. And you look up, you got now a whole lot of non-criminal people charged with felony offenses, young people, for exercising their First Amendment rights to protest peacefully. So don't think that the system is broken. It is working the way it was designed to work. Okay? Now, the second reason that, or the second thing that the Breonna Taylor murder case say is that black conservatives don't care. Yeah, I mean, I hate to say that, but we saw that in this Breonna Taylor case because of the Kentucky Attorney General, this young man. This is the young man who was appointed chief, special prosecutor in this case. So he was the one responsible for presenting the Breonna Taylor murder case to the grand jury. I listened to his press conference when he announced that no homicide indictments would be handed down by the grand jury. And I want you to hear me very clearly here, and you will see why I say that black conservatives don't care. They just don't care, okay? So this man, I'm going to have to say, is a total sellout. This man has sold his race out. This man is so interested in being a part of white society, so interested in moving up in white society, so interested in assimilating in white society, that he sold his own race out. Okay? He certainly sold out Breonna Taylor and her family. All right? This man is a protege of someone everybody knows, Mitch McConnell. He was a staffer for Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell, I'm sure, encouraged him to run for the AG's office. Why? Because he talked the talk. This black dude talked the talk. He said the things that made Mitch McConnell know, wow, he would be good in the AG's office, or he would be good on the federal bench, or he would be good maybe even on the Supreme Court. In fact, he was named by Donald Trump as one of the folks that could end up on the U.S. Supreme Court. This guy, okay? And he just completely sold Breonna Taylor out, totally, okay? And, he gave a speech at the Republican National Convention here over the past couple of months, okay, on behalf of Donald Trump. So he's completely drunk that Kool-Aid. He has completely sold us out. And listen, I went to a law school My first year in law school was at Regent University in Virginia Beach, Virginia. And it is an extremely conservative law school. It's a Christian law school, and it's very conservative, and it's predominantly white. I was one of only a few students who went there. And I'm not going to malign the school, the professors. I'm not going to malign my classmates. I'm not going to do that. But just suffice it to say, I transferred after a year. I totally enjoyed the Christian witness and emphasis of the school. I did some speaking before classes sometimes. I was highly respected and highly regarded, you know? But I know at the same time that there were some who were interested in kind of propping me up, like this young man kind of propping me up, and if I would agree to be one of these black conservatives who sold out his race. That's not me. Okay, that's not Augustus Corbett. Okay, I am conservative on some issues because I am a believer. I'm a Christian. But I am very progressive on other issues, also because I'm a believer. I'm not a Republican. I have been, but I'm not a Republican because I'm an independent and because I'm a Christ follower. I'm not a Democrat. I've been both, but I let both of them go because I saw that both of them were missing it in some way, some big way. Okay, so I know how enticing it is for some blacks when white conservatives roll out the red carpet for you. And they want you to be out there saying the things that benefits them, okay, like Candace Owen. That's why Donald Trump, you know, that's why they love those black conservatives, because they say the things that the white conservative racists want them to say, but the white conservatives don't catch the heat for it because it's a black guy saying it. And in essence, what the black conservatives end up doing is giving cover to white racists. They cover them. Okay? Donald Trump, I saw him today giving a news conference, and he said that he really enjoyed the comments that Daniel Cameron made when he announced that there were no indictments coming. In fact, I heard Trump say he told one of his staffers, write down that phrase, something that Cameron said, write it down. So you're going to hear that again, because you're going to hear it coming out of Trump's mouth. Okay? And if somebody take him to task, he'll say, well, this is what the black guy said. This is what he said. And trust me, this young man will get rewarded. He'll get rewarded. He's already AG, and he's going to get other appointments. I promise you. I don't know what's coming next, but he's going to get something. They're going to prop him up because they want more black conservatives out there giving them cover. So he's going to end up somewhere on a federal bench, federal appeals court, something up in D.C. if somebody resigns or something. He was just elected Kentucky AG, but think about a federal bench. That's a job, that's an appointment for life. AG just a few years, but the federal bench as an appeals court judge, as they're grooming him probably to take Clarence Thomas's place. So basically they got their hand on him. He's going places in the conservative movement, all right? And in order to go places, he has to sell out his people. And that's what he's doing. He's a total sellout. In this particular instance, in the Breonna Taylor case, he protected the police. He protected the police, okay? And I'm told that he ran on that platform of protecting the police. And that's exactly what he did with this grand jury. Now, let me tell you how. The average person doesn't understand it, a lay person doesn't understand it because you're not lawyers and you don't deal with the criminal justice system, specifically with grand juries. But remember I told you earlier that when a person is charged with an offense, their case then goes in front of a grand jury if it's a felony. Okay, if it's a felony. If it's a misdemeanor, in a lot of jurisdictions, it doesn't go to the grand jury. But if it's a felony, then it goes before a grand jury. Has to in many jurisdictions. Now, the only question that the prosecutor should be asking the grand jury members is one simple question. Is there probable cause? Is there probable cause to indict this person? Now, probable cause, ladies and gentlemen, is a very low standard. A very low standard. Some people confuse probable cause with the standard of beyond a reasonable doubt. That's a very high standard. And had this case been indicted, then it would have gone into the court system where it would have now been required of the state to show their guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. But at the grand jury stage, all they needed to show, all Daniel Cameron needed to show was that there was probable cause. What does that mean? Well, based on the facts and circumstances, it's more likely, it's probable that somebody unlawfully killed Breonna Taylor. That's exactly what it means. Probable cause is where there are facts and circumstances that suggest that a crime was committed and that this person probably committed the crime. That's a low standard. I mean, it requires some evidence, but not a lot. And trust me when I tell you, my clients, it is a really low standard that is applied to them. But when it's a police officer, especially a white police officer, for shooting or killing a black person, that standard is real low. Really, 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 really low. Now, here's what Daniel did, because I listened to him. He said many things, but one of the things that he said that let me know how he presented the case to the grand jury was he said the officers returned fire and they were justified in doing so because they were fired upon first. Okay? See, that, he was, at that point, he was acting as a jury member, not a grand jury, but a jury who's deciding a trial. That is the standard for a jury member, a regular jury. The grand jury members don't even get that far. The grand jury members are only supposed to determine if there's probable cause. And when you think about the fact that they were at the wrong house, when they shot 32 rounds, when they didn't identify themselves, Daniel Cameron said one person heard them identify themselves while 12 or more people didn't hear anything. That doesn't meet all of those things and more definitely add up to probable cause, more than probable cause. But he didn't apply the probable cause standard to these police officers. He had the grand jury acting like a regular jury, and he basically presented a defense case for them. He did basically what I would do if I was representing one of those police officers. You see, he was defending them. He was protecting them. He didn't present a probable cause case to the grand jury. Had he communicated to the grand jury, first of all, grand jury, all you need to decide on today is whether there is probable cause to indict one or more of these officers. Do the facts and circumstances suggest that a crime was committed and one of these three officers probably committed the crime? Just that simple. And if they look then at the fact that, again, they were at the wrong house, they shot without announcing themselves, they shot on a no-knock warrant, they shot 32 times. This woman was completely innocent. She was asleep. She was home, minding her business. Somebody, certainly all of that I just mentioned would definitely amount to probable cause. Trust me, if it was you and me, that would have been a 5-minute deliberation, if that long. He protected the police. He defended them. He didn't do what a prosecutor should do in that situation and just present enough evidence to meet the probable cause standard. That's why none of them got indicted for killing Breonna Taylor. It is that simple. It is that simple. He protected them. He did what he knew he had to do in order to please Mitch McConnell, Donald Trump, and the rest of that crowd. That's why I say again, he's a sellout. Prosecutors are supposed to seek justice. He was not seeking justice. He was protecting those police officers. And that's why they got away with it. Okay, let me stop there. I was about to say they got away with murder. Some of you believe that, but I'm still a lawyer. I'm a professional. And I know that people are presumed innocent until enough evidence has been presented to meet the beyond the reasonable doubt standard. That has not been done, so I'm going to give them the benefit of I'm going to presume that they're innocent. That's what I would want. That's what I want for my clients. But that still does not negate the fact that there was more than enough evidence for them to get indicted. That's all I'm talking about. I'm not saying what should have happened once they were indicted and it went before a jury. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the simple fact that there was more than enough evidence to meet the probable cause standard so that they, all three, would have been indicted. Again, Mr. Cameron, he didn't present a probable cause case. And I know it because when he said that they had the right to return fire, therefore the killing of Breonna Taylor was justified, he was way beyond what the grand jury should have been considering. And again, if it's a regular person, oh my God, they would have never gotten that far. Would have been 2 minutes. 2 minutes. They would have just said, he killed somebody at the wrong house. He killed somebody without knocking. All of that. It would have been over. Indictment. Okay? That's why those officers were not indicted. This is a game of chess, not checkers. We have to think 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and 8 and 9 and 10 moves ahead of these folks. Okay? So what are some of the things that can be done to prevent this sort of thing from happening in the past? Well, one of the things is we need to have an independent body looking at these cases rather than having the prosecutor's office or someone in law enforcement handling the case that goes in front of the grand jury, because the prosecutor and law enforcement are on the same team. They're one and the same. One investigates and then the other one prosecutes, but they need each other. They're like brothers. They're biased. So you don't need the prosecutors being responsible for presenting cases on police officers, concerning police officers, to a grand jury. You need an independent body. You need some, Daniel Cameron supposedly was independent. No, he wasn't. He was very biased. I mean, he's trying to get somewhere in his career. He has a certain ideology that makes him extremely biased. All right? They needed someone who completely was not a part of that. And we knew what was going to happen with this case when we saw Daniel Cameron standing up at the Trump convention giving that speech. I mean, you already kind of know where that was headed, right? So, yeah, that's one of the things that we could do, is to support these police accountability boards and try and get someone else appointed to present cases to the grand jury when it involves police shootings. And then we always need to always have this conversation about getting rid of qualified immunity. I personally think you get rid of qualified immunity, and that will deeply curtail police shootings, because without qualified immunity, they will be held accountable in the civil courts. And then if you get rid of a couple of Supreme Court cases, they will be held accountable in the criminal courts as well. When you know you can do something, and 99% of the times you're going to get away with it, even if you're wrong, even if you're on video doing it, even if the police officers shoot someone in the wrong house and all the stuff involved in Breonna Taylor's case, but you know you're still not going to get indicted, you know you're still not going to probably get sued, or if you do, get thrown out and the police union will pay for your lawyer's fees. Come on, there's no incentive to do better. So in addition to these police accountability boards presenting cases to the grand jury rather than the brother of law enforcement, the brother of the police officer, which is the prosecutor's office, come on. And I work with a lot of prosecutors and don't want to malign all of them. I'm not talking about all of them. Some of them are friends of mine, and some of them have done my clients a very fair job. So it's not all of them, it's the system. That's what I'm talking about. It's the system that if they don't push back, even the good ones, if they don't push back or have sort of an independent streak about themselves, then the system will use them too. But I'm fortunate to say that I've dealt with prosecutors who have worked with me on my cases. They have worked with me when in Dallas County, with a lot of them, when I've been over there, like I said, going on 14 years. And a lot of them, when I say this or that about a client or a defendant, put my word and reputation, they'll go along with me and try to help me out with this person if they deserve it. Some of them are good and fair and just. I'm mainly talking about the system. And there are I've dealt with some who were just completely, totally tunnel vision. Okay? But I would say a lot of them are fair, but the system itself. And Dallas County is unique anyway, right? I mean, there have been 3 police officers here held accountable for killing innocent people. This is unusual. Okay? So Dallas is a lot different. And part of the reason why it's different is because there are black judges every place, a lot of black prosecutors, black police chief, black sheriff, black mayor, black city manager. I mean, blacks are in high places here. So things can get done here. But then you go into these adjacent counties, and some of them are more difficult to work with. Okay? Some of them are fair in those counties too, but some tend to be more difficult to work with. All right? So that's what happened with these police officers in the Breonna Taylor case. They had an ace in the hole, and that ace in the hole was this guy, Daniel Cameron. And he presented a case to the grand jury that just really torpedoed any chance of Breonna Taylor getting justice. He single-handedly did this. Of course, there were people working with him, but he was in control. He was the captain of the ship. And he's the reason why those officers, none of them were indicted on Breonna Taylor's case. So that's my legal analysis. It is what it is. I'm not going to get up here and tell you lies and not just speak the truth and be upfront and frank about it. It's not me. I'm going to tell it like I see it. Okay? And this guy sold her out, basically. All right? So that is it for today. That's what I wanted to say on the Breonna Taylor case. You can go to my YouTube channel. I've done a lot more videos. In fact, I did another video early on in the Breonna Taylor case. I invite you to go there and check that video out. It is Corbett and Corbett YouTube. Corbett and Corbett LLP, our YouTube channel. I think if you just Googled Corbett and Corbett LLP YouTube channel, it'll come up. Okay, we also broadcast these videos on Periscope, Facebook, and Twitter. So you can get these videos on all of those, and Instagram. Okay. So look, I hope this was beneficial. I hope this kind of helped you understand a little bit better of why she did not get justice in this case, unfortunately. Okay, at least not yet. If there's a turn of events and for some reason another grand jury is impaneled and the person presenting the case is fair and is seeking justice and not trying to get somewhere in his career or not trying to impress his conservative supporters, then a different outcome could happen. All right? All right, that's it. Thank you.